स्टडी IQ IAS, अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल।
Hello students, welcome to StudyIQ's initiative, the podcast. I am your host Dipansh Moorjani. So get your juices flowing because it is time for the podcast of the day. In the last few episodes of the podcast, we have discussed all the important provisions related to emergency. So all the new listeners out there can listen to our previous episodes not only on YouTube but also on all the audio streaming platforms like Spotify, Hubhopper, Apple Podcast, etc. In today's episode, we are going to discuss about Parliament. Sir, first things first, can you give us a brief idea about what is Parliament?
To understand what is Parliament, it is very important for students to understand the three organs of any government. Number 1, executive. Number 2, legislative. And number 3, judiciary. Parliament is the legislative organ of union government. The other two, as I have explained, executive and judiciary. Adoption of parliamentary form of government gives pivotal position to parliament in Indian democratic system. Parliament caters to a tool for a genuine democracy which is inconceivable without a representative, efficient and effective legislature. In a parliamentary democracy, the parliament as a body representing the wishes of people, which occupies a very high position of power and responsibility at the same time. There are some democratic potential of parliament that the legislature also helps people in holding the representatives accountable. This is indeed a very basic form of representative democracy.
Sir, how can we understand representative democracy?
Representative democracy refers to a democratic system in which people choose their representatives through an election process and indirectly participate in decision-making process. Representative democracy is one in which voters select or elect a public servant to speak for them when laws are being made. Lawmaking is but one of the functions of legislature. It is the center of all democratic political processes. Legislature is the most representative of all organs of government. The sheer presence of members of diverse social backgrounds makes the legislature more representative and potentially more responsive to people's expectations.
Sir, can you throw some light on constitutional provisions related to our parliament?
Article 79 to Article 122 in Part 5 of Indian Constitution deals with the organization, composition, duration, officers, procedures, privileges, powers and so on of the parliament. In this context, Article 79 says that there shall be a parliament for the union which shall consist of president and two houses to be known respectively as a council of state, that is Rajya Sabha, and house of people, that is Lok Sabha. Similarly, under Article 80 and 81, the composition of Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha is mentioned respectively. Article 82 says that the readjustment after each census should happen through delimitation commission.
Sir, can you walk us through a journey on composition of parliament?
The Parliament of India consists of three parts: the President of India, the Council of State, and House of People. President, although integral part of Parliament, however, he is not a member of either House of a Parliament. The President does not sit in Parliament as well. In the year 1954, the Hindi names for Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha were adopted by Council of State and House of People respectively. The Lok Sabha is the lower house, which is first chamber or popular house, which represents the people of India as a whole. Whereas the Rajya Sabha, which is upper house or also called second chamber or house of elders, which represents the states and union territories of Indian Union. Unlike Britain and India, American president is not an integral part of the legislature.
Sir, now we are eager to understand the functions of President related to functioning of our Parliament.
As we have already mentioned that President is an integral part of a legislature and Parliament. Therefore, President also have some powers regarding the Parliament. Number 1, President can summon both the houses. President can prorogue both the houses. He can also address both the houses. President also dissolves the Lok Sabha. However, this kind of dissolution should be based on the recommendation of cabinet. President with the Article 123 also have powers to issue ordinance when houses are not in the session. In this context, we try to understand if any bill originate either in Lok Sabha or in Rajya Sabha and it get passed by both houses or either of the houses as the procedure mentioned, and if that bill goes to the president, after the assent of president only that bill will become an act. This role of president is critical in this context of parliament.
Sir, from our examination point of view, next important aspect is the difference. India follows parliamentary form of democracy which is in sync with the British pattern. However, British pattern is different from the American pattern. So what are the differences between these two patterns?
Let us try to understand the difference between American pattern and British pattern in context with Indian pattern. In American pattern, legislature, which is known as Congress, this is consist of two houses. Number 1, Senate, which is upper house. In the Indian context, it is also called Rajya Sabha. And in the second house of American parliament is House of Representatives, which is lower house. In the Britain, the parliament consists of three elements. Number 1, crown, which is consisting of king or queen. Number 2, House of Lords, which is upper house. Number 3, House of Commons, which is lower house. In the Indian context, British pattern is being followed. However, the first position of crown is being replaced in India by president. As India is a republic nation, the president highest post is also elected individual. Now we will try to understand the second difference between American and British parliamentary system. In America, the presidential form of government lays stress on the separation of legislative and executive organ. However, in Britain, parliamentary form of government emphasizes on the interdependence and cooperation between the legislative and executive organs. As we will discuss this, the major difference between Indian parliamentary system and Britain parliamentary system is that the Council of Minister or the Cabinet is responsible for the Lok Sabha in India. However, this provision is not there in British Parliament. The third important difference between American parliamentary system and Britain or Indian parliamentary system is that the American president is not regarded as a constituent part of the Congress. However, in India, India has a president in parliament like the crown in parliament in Britain.
Sir, thank you for giving us the information. Dear listeners, it is time to wrap up this episode of the podcast, but you all don't have to worry because in the next episode, we are going to discuss about Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha in detail. So all the new listeners out there can listen to our previous episodes not only on YouTube but also on all the audio streaming platforms like Spotify, Hubhopper, Kuku FM, Apple Podcast, etc. Links are pinned in the comment section below. Stay connected with Study IQ. Thank you.